and welcome to World of Watsorb and part 11 of my Final Fantasy VII and its remake comparison and review. We're in the home straight now with all the gameplay I need or can do in the remake's case, and I have this and the next 3 videos lined up, and I plan to hopefully finish off with an overall little summary after that. Straight into the action though this time, and we see the aftermath of the fall of the Sector 7 plate. Tifa especially dismayed at Shinra's actions. As her and Cloud make their way through the wreckage, we're about to see Barrett's wails of grief over it all, and I've taken the opportunity to highlight how closely timed the makers have got in the remake in certain scenes, and I felt that adding the voice acting to the original scenes here really does lend them an additional weight.
Marlene! 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 Biggs! Wedge! Jesse! God damn it! God damn you! God damn you all! Marlene! Marlene!
A really emotional few scenes in both games, with the remake really making us feel it. But, as we know, Marlene has been taken to safety by Aerith, and Tifa gives Barrett, well Denzel here, some hope that his daughter is alive. I want to mention the original score here again. As I've said before, Nobuo Uematsu created a wonderful score which I listen to regularly, and while many of the remake's upgrades to that are very powerful and orchestral, I will always prefer to listen to the original themes. I always felt they really help have us forget the crude graphics for the characters that are in front of us, and draw us into the gravity of any scene in the original game, and we'll see that exemplified back at Aerith's house shortly. Beautiful stuff. But as we see here, Tifa starts to question Avalanche's portion of the blame. Quite understandably, but as with any group fighting a great evil, these actions cannot be seen as anything but good and just, both for the characters and for us as players, which Barrett is quick to remind us of. Cloud is then questioned on his views on the situation and promptly fucks off, and we'll then see how well the scene translates into the remake.
I said, where you going?
Aerith's house. It's in the Sector 5 slums.
And that's where Marlene is?
Where we hope she is.
Tell me she is. Give me something to hang on to. Even if she's not, I won't blame you for it, I swear. Who am I kidding? I'd probably try to tear your head off.
Some searing self-honesty from Barrett there as we head back to the one screen on the original between Sectors 6 and 7 for Cloud to be caught up to in a similar fashion, and we see the now familiar kind of mental episodes that Cloud has and that kind of blacked out dialogue. This time the words are echoes from what Cloud recalls Sephiroth saying on having the blood of the ancients, which has been triggered following the revelation that Aerith is the last of the ancients, and again the scene is brilliantly updated in the remake.
In my veins flows the blood of ancients. This planet is my birthright.
In this, of course, Cloud given a full vision of his former mentor, and although nobody else is able to see this just now, that will change. It's a great scene here, and I do have to say the remake's music does do it justice, but it's these words from Sephiroth that seem to rock Cloud and give him further cause to doubt his own memories.
Suffer, you will grow strong. Isn't that what you want?
The scene is much the same in the original, though we do see a lot less. Again, I feel it's an example of the makers putting what they wanted to in 1997 into the remake. Barrett, though, not having any time for this nonsense. A wee bit of guidance for you here to show there's a sneaky bit of sense materia hidden away on the previous screen, which you couldn't access during the cutscene previously. And back to Aerith and her theme giving a different, more poignant feeling here with it being in her absence. It's a really great piece of score which I'll let run in a moment, but we then fold into the remake to see how it's been updated, and Elmira makes a startling revelation.
She's not my daughter. Not by blood, I mean. If that's what you were wondering. About 15 years ago. My husband, he'd been shipped off to fight on the front lines. But then I received a letter saying he'd be home for a bit. So when the day came, I went to the station to meet him.
Overall, it's a really nice scene in both games, but worth noting there on the bottom left of the original, it appears to be Biggs and Jessie meeting, but that may not be the intention, as I didn't see any sight of them in the remake at the station. This scene also gives us one of the references to the war with Wutai that are peppered throughout the original game, with of course Elmira's husband being away fighting. The remake has already ramped up these references, and it would appear from those that the war will be of greater relevance and significance throughout the story. I haven't been able to play the intergrade with Yuffie yet, and I've avoided much of the information out there about it as I want to play it fresh when I get a PS5, but it could certainly lend weight to her story as the remake progresses. And it's also here a nice bit of backstory for Elmira in this short scene, and although it is short, I do feel it's still very impactful and of course helped immeasurably by the score. But we then see Elmira finding Aerith and her dying mother, Ilfana. And as we go into the remake, note that Aerith is roughly the same age as her flashback scenes we saw in the last video, and we get to find out more about Aerith's abilities of precognition and a special awareness which is exhibited throughout the story in both games so far.
That's how I met her. Her and her mother. I thought maybe they'd run away from Wall Market, or that they were topsiders fallen on hard times. I'd seen that sort of thing a lot. Take Aerith somewhere safe. Those were her mother's dying words. My husband had been away for so long, and I was lonely. So I convinced myself the safest place for the girl was with me. It took no time at all for her to start feeling like family. She was a real chatterbox. She told me strange stories. Like how she and her mother had escaped from some sort of facility. And how she wasn't sad because her mother had just returned to their planet.
Their planet, huh? Yeah, that sounds about right.
I didn't understand any of it at the time. When I asked if she meant one in the sky, she said no. This one, right here. I mean, what can you say to that?
Mommy, don't be sad.
The whole scene of exposition over this part was so well handled and updated in the remake, and coming up there's a scene which definitely has a hint of one in the last video, of when the Turks have come to take Aerith from 7th Heaven, and we see some similar events unfold when she was a little girl, and we then see Elmira finding out the truth about her adopted daughter.
And then, a few days later, I received a letter saying my husband had been killed in action. Things like that, she'd just know. It was a lot to deal with, but we were happy. And then came the knock.
Coming! No! Go away!
Aerith, you know you're not just any little girl. You're a descendant of the ancients.
I had no idea what he meant, so I said, "Who are the ancients?"
They were the original stewards of the planet, whose boundless knowledge and wisdom shall guide us to the promised land. Some believe the promised land to be a myth, others an allegory of sorts. But we take the words of the scriptures at face value and believe it to be quite real. Which is why Shinra would like very much for Aerith to help us.
You're wrong! I'm not an ancient!
In both games, Aerith resists the notion that she's special, but Elmira is well aware of her abilities, and from the dialogue in the original here, we see that she allowed Aerith to keep it a secret, wink wink, as she was growing up. We then see in the remake how Elmira has dealt with this by convincing herself that Aerith will at least be treated well by Shinra. She can't bear to lose Aerith completely, and warns Cloud off any rescue
Otherwise
attempt.
it wouldn't work, they said. That's why, even if they did take her away, I'm sure she's still being treated like a guest. And that they'll send her straight back home, once they get what they need.
I doubt it.
You're not planning anything, are you? Don't make things worse than they already are. If I lost her too, I don't know if I could ever. Just don't.
Cloud, maybe she's right about this. Maybe they'll let Aerith go when it's all over. Maybe we'd be better off waiting a little while.
Let's head back to Sector 7. Got things to take care of. Like checking up on the bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our group's acceptance of this threw me initially when first playing the remake, but of course it has a lot more to do before we can move on with the original plot. Now, the next section encapsulates the two different kinds of extension that the remake gives to the original game, with some added storyline, and then we have the more side missions helping the locals out again. While in the original here, we prepare to go and rescue Aerith from Shinra HQ, the addition of Elmira's opposition to any rescue in the remake allows us a chance to return to what remains of Sector 7 and find if any of our friends have survived. Well, yes, diverging from the original plot, it's a much more realistic portrayal of reactions following such a tragedy.
So how are we supposed to get back inside?
Underground passage in the park.
Good plan.
But how do we get to the park?
I know another way to get there. Aerith showed me before.
This ancient girl knows her stuff.
This then leads into a rescue mission for Wedge, who's miraculously survived the falling plate. We come across one of Wedge's cats amongst the ruins, and it leads us to a gaping hole in the ground where Wedge has seemingly fallen. We follow our feline helper into what is revealed to be a large Shinra laboratory, which is something entirely new to the remake. However, given later plot developments in Nibelheim in the original game, this whole section really does make a lot of sense as to the shocking truth that's beneath Midgar.
This place reeks of Shinra.
Wedge?
Before we can reach him though, the floor gives way and our heroes plummet into darkness. All three separated, we focus initially on Barrett, which gives us a nice chance to have him as the main playable character for a little while.
Tifa! Cloud! Shout if you can hear me! Hey! If there's no path, you gotta make one.
As you'll see in a second, to make a path, as Barrett said, he has the ability to shoot the shit out of certain blocked areas on the map in order to find his way out, and that also auto-locks onto any of the little Shinra crates that you can open en route. And it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to get locked onto targets and make sure you stand in just the right place to set that off.
Hang in there.
As Barrett makes his way through, he then meets up with Tifa, who's surrounded by a swarm of bats for some reason, and then we make our way back up and find Wedge again. No sign of Cloud so far, but before we can worry about that, there's going to be a bit of battling to be done.
He's okay.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
Making me worry like that. I'd kick your ass if you didn't look like shit. Thank God.
Thank you. Okay, let's go.
Barrett pops Wedge out of harm's way, and they then face a barrage of these mutant type creatures who again are new to the remake and show hints of the frightening experiments that Shinra are carrying out, and we'll meet the architect of those plans in the coming parts of this series. And after we make short work of the initial run of these monsters, we then have another slew of them come through and a large giant daddy monster to round off the chapter with a boss fight. And as we triumph, the failed experiment enters some violent death throes, and as it looks like it's going to launch a massive final attack, we are saved by the return of Cloud, who takes a big guy apart.
About time, Merc.
You're up.
Late to the party and you giving me orders? Hell yeah!
Barrett finishes the boss off, and then there's a nice wee bit of banter between him and Cloud.
So how'd you manage to track us down?
Followed the trail of bullet holes. There's nobody else I know who did that kind of mess.
And as the gameplay resumes, we're oddly still in charge of Barrett, given the fact that Cloud is now back with us, but we have one more wall to shoot out, and it's going to reveal something which has connections to plot lines that we don't learn about until much later in the original game, which is big ties to Cloud. Hence the flashback you'll see here where it appears that he is in one of these containers.
People?
The scale of Shinra's unethical behaviour is being revealed to be way bigger than we'd known. However, as I said, if we're looking at the truth
That's the
of what
Shinra I know.
is or could be under the original game, I feel this all makes perfect sense. These scenes of Cloud giving rise to the players and his own concerns of whether he is one of these experiments. Well, maybe new players anyway. However, those wraith-like spectres are back and they decide that we've seen enough for now and pushes back out to the entrance. The story missions like this, they deepen the plot and the character development in the remake, giving us so much more realism, and as I've referenced such ones as side missions before, that's probably a bit unfair. And this remake's going to be giant in its plot, no doubt being told across the lifespan of the PlayStation 5, and there's so much to explore within Final Fantasy VII, you could well go beyond that. And we now need somewhere for Wedge to go and get healed up.
I'm sorry.
There's only one place we can think of, and that's back to Elmira's.
We had no other place to go, and
I would never leave a wounded man out on the street.
Elmira, I know what you said, but you have to let us go after Aerith.
Not this again.
We found an underground Shinra lab, where they've done human testing. This wasn't the first time, and it won't be the last. I know these people, and I know they're never gonna let Aerith go. She's the last living ancient on the planet. Think about what that means to Shinra's scientists. Especially to that son of a bitch, Hojo. We're all just numbers and meat to him.
Enough!
But...
Please, I need some time to think.
Elmira, still needing time to consider Cloud's warning, gives us time for a scene which is one of 3 possibilities that we can see in the remake. In my playthrough here, it's a lovely scene with Tifa, but I have also seen the other 2. There's a dream sequence with Aerith and one with Barrett. I've not played the Barrett one personally yet.
No. You too?
I heard footsteps.
Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you.
I'm a light sleeper. It's a soldier thing.
That flower you gave me the other night, that was from Aerith, wasn't it? I knew there was something weird going on. You buying flowers. They symbolize reunion, believe it or not. I was curious, so I looked it up. I tried to keep it alive as long as I could. But now, it's dead and buried. Like the bar, our home, and everything else. They took everything from us. Again.
Whilst the other scenes are great as well, I really love this scene, as Tifa stating again there, she's referencing events in her hometown of Nibelheim, and I'm sure I wasn't the only person at this point saying, oh for God's sake, give her a hug, Cloud, which of course he does, but maybe a little too fiercely. It really gives us some emotional weight to Cloud and Tifa's past, and I really look forward to seeing that whole side develop. The requirements for this scene choice depend on various factors of dialogue and action choices made earlier in the game concerning Tifa, Aerith and Barrett,
you've done more
and
for
whether
us than we
we've
deserve.
actually carried out many of
I
the
won't
actual
forget
side
this.
missions available.
If you ever need anything, all you gotta do is holler.
Happy to help out, however I can.
Elmira.
I've been thinking about what you said.
She's calling out to me. I can feel it.
We all can. So please. She's our friend. We have to help her.
I always knew it was coming. Knew that one day I'd have to say goodbye to my baby girl. But not yet. Please, bring her back to me.
So now that Elmira is in agreement, we can plan to leave, but this means that Marlene's going to need looked after. So cut back to this nice little scene in the original where Barrett insists on coming with Cloud to rescue Aerith. Marlene agrees with this and sows in some little seeds of the love triangle story that's really only hinted at in the original. And again, these choices here, they have an impact on the gold saucer date later. And we're then going to cut back to see the farewell between father and daughter reflected in the remake a little differently. Again, adding to the Barrett character arc.
Daddy!
Marlene.
Are you going?
I'm sorry, honey. I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could be with you all the time. I really do. But if I stay here, I can't fight out there. And that's why I've got to go. You remember that nice girl who came to find you? Well, now we have to go find her. And when we bring her home, you need to say thank you, okay?
Okay. That girl, she was kind of...
What?
nothing. You should help her.
We will.
You'll come back, right?
Of course, I promise.
Okay. You can go.
So, with Marlene's permission, it's time to head off. In both games, we're going to go back to Wall Market. However, the games diverge again here with the remake, changing the manner of our ascent to the plate.
She's tougher than me. Alright, time to get some payback.
Don't forget why we're doing this.
I know. To rescue Aerith.
Yep, indeed, Barrett's right, and in the original we do just that. However, it's also time for the mercenary side missions to come back in the remake, which I'm going to highlight a couple of those here.
I'm sure they're around here somewhere, frightened and hungry. My poor birds.
Worried about him, huh? Alright, I think we can help you out.
Oh, thank you. When you find them, feed them this. There's 3 missing all told, and their names are Coco, Lolo, and Momo. They'll come on home once they got some food in their bellies. Good luck. I'm counting on y'all.
Although we can skip all of these side quests and move on, the Chocobo encounter is forced upon us to introduce the side quests, and also it's worth doing because it rewards us with free Chocobo travel from Chocobo Sam. And I wonder if that'll be the main style of world map movement in the remake as it progresses. I wonder what that will mean for the Chocobo farm later. So, Lolo's been filled up then.
Here, y'all learn this. It's a pass that'll get you a ride on one of my carriages whenever you need it. Free of charge, of course. Not bad, am I right? Chocobos or something else. You can ride them, pet them, befriend them. What would we do without them? They're the reason a guy like me can keep a roof over his head in a town like this. And that's no lie. I wouldn't blame you for doubting that coming from me, but it is what it is.
And we get to see Johnny again, and he's as annoying and as useless as ever. This time he's been mugged by a teenage girl, which then leads into some other further quest lines with the Angel of the Slums, but I've got to leave some things for you to find out for yourselves.
I'm trying to get out of town for reasons. Yeah, reasons. But the thing is, I got mugged. She took it all, man. I tried to chase her down, I really did. But she was real fast like. Man, what am I gonna do? This could be the end for old Johnny boy.
Well, hopefully. But quite by chance on this playthrough, I was in the position to fully complete this musical side quest for little Betty, having amassed all the wee records that you can find throughout the playthroughs that I've done. However, This led into what I can only describe as a mad scene, which is a little dubious to me. Betty references first that her and Marlene would dance to this tune,
This one. Marlene and I danced to it before.
which, given that it's from a burlesque house, the Honeybee Inn, I would agree with that statement. But this old man is going to come in and make things a whole lot weirder.
Attention, kiddo. It's all in the hips.
Wow.
Come on, little lady. Why don't you give it a whirl?
And to quote the man himself,
That's wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
you said it.
Isn't this great? Everyone's smiling again. Thanks so much for the help.
Our pleasure. I think we needed it too.
Da, 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 da.
Hey.
Until the day our victory fanfare rings out through all of Midgar, our battle will rage on. I'm just kidding.
Make sure to bring Marlene next time.
So, as we leave Betty bopping away, just flicked into this screen in the remake to show the number of those little extra missions that we can take on, and which can fairly be described as side quests. A lot to do, which is something important for any game these days to keep people coming back. Of course, the original, probably one of the earliest games to have stuff like that in it at all. And we head back through Wall Market, and in the original we follow some children calling and head over to a pipe which is there to allow us to climb up to the upper plate before we learn that we've got to obtain a number of batteries to help with our ascent. In the remake we're heading for Don Corneo's as we believe he's the most likely person to know our way up, but it's not the Don that we find.
Long time no see. What brings you back here?
Well, we need to find a way to get topside as quickly as possible. And we figured Corneo ought to know one.
Is that so? In that case, I can help.
You serious? Then tell us.
Follow me. Let's just hear him out.
Leslie's back, and we're now going to head into another new set of scenes which does give us a lot of backstory for Leslie and gives him a lot of depth for his character and adds to the overall
What's the deal
storyline.
with the hole?
Unfinished business. If you three give me a hand with it, I'll give you what you need to get topside.
You want us to go back into the sewers with you?
And we find Leslie does have his own reasons for hunting
That's
down
not
the
a
Dawn.
key.
Sorry.
That's not your pendant either. Were they family?
No.
It was all just a dream, wasn't it? But one day, no. Time to wake up and forget.
"6 months ago. On that day, Corneo picked her as a bride, and on the next, she vanished without a trace. It's Leslie! Got some urgent info for the Dawn!
Come alone?
Of course.
Really? Without my little avalanche kittens? I thought I told you to round them up and bring them to me.
Actually, it's them I came to talk about.
It's a really well played out scene, although it does take quite a while to get here, a lot of running about, chasing things. But anybody who's played the original and know about the Dawn's return later, and they'll have known this wasn't going to end well for Leslie.
Leslie. I don't think I need to remind you why I'm down here. Spilling the beans to those 3 escape artists was a serious mistake. Now I'm on Shinra's shit list. The plate stunt was meant to be an unprecedented tragedy, claiming countless innocent lives. But those naughty little kittens organized an evacuation and screwed up the plan.
Nice to hear that our actions seem to have saved most in the Sector 7 slums.
Abandon Midgar and build something close to paradise. I was invited to be a part of it. Dawn of a new and improved wall market.
And we'll hear more about Neo Midgar,
I'll be
part
lucky
13.
to live another week. Leslie, I was gonna let you run your own place. Give you a piece of the action. What a shame. Pop quiz time, kiddo! Villains like us only divulge our evil plans in a certain situation. But what is that situation,
When you think you've already won.
Goodbye.
Think again, Dawn.
Huh? It's you.
You were talking about the Sector 7 plan. Keep talking, asshole.
Ah! Over there! Over there, look!
Don't try to bullshit us.
But that's the thing. It's not technically bullshit when it's true. Good, Abzu. Feel free to play with your food. Gone out.
Bastard.
Corneo unleashing Abzu once again, along with some of his kids this time. One of those was responsible for the time it took to get to this part. And as we check, Abzu definitely not getting up this time, we head on over to make sure Leslie's okay. Get a little bit more story on him.
You okay?
And make our way back up
Where's
towards the
Corneo?
plate.
Sorry, bastard got away.
It's fine. I'll track him down eventually. Not like I have anything better to do.
You know, I wouldn't be so sure about that. She could still be out there.
Can never be sure how much someone means to you till they're gone. Don't give up on her yet.
Was it a message? What was she trying to tell me?
We'll meet again.
Huh?
It's a symbol of reunion.
Then I guess I've got no choice but to find her first. Thanks.
Hold up. I think you might be forgetting something.
I haven't. Found it. Let's get out of here. And then I'll give you what you need.
Having made it out of the sewers, we're brought into a section which is close by to an area that we do see in the original game, but you know, the whole place is expanded upon
Taste
here.
that sweet Midgar smog.
This way!
And we learn how we are to ascend to the upper plate in the remake.
Grappling guns. You can practically fly with the souped up motors on these babies. Sector 7 is on the other side of that wall. The guns will get you over and past it, along with any number of other obstacles.
The original, as you can see, simply has this pipe running up the wall and what seems to be a misspelt avalanche bit of graffiti. I always wondered if it was meant to say avalanche or perhaps something else, but I suspect it's maybe another victim of the mistranslation issues. Remake confirms that it certainly is avalanche, and while the pipes are still there, we're going to go with the grappling guns.
Pretty high.
Excited?
Oh yeah.
Glad someone is.
Aerith's up there, waiting for us.
Then we best get a move on, huh?
Ready?
I suppose it maybe seems a little safer, though if any of the videos I've seen about grappling guns such as that in films and games are anything to go by, they could really damage our characters, though this is why we suspend disbelief, but I digress. In the original, we had to obtain 3 batteries from a man in the weapons store, and I've used this section of that climb as it was always a source of annoyance trying to time the jump onto the swinging bar. Luckily I think there's only 3 attempts this time around, but this is the second time you have to pass it if you go for that extra battery and box and header there. And there's a reason I didn't go for the first attempt and put that in the video. The key here is to remember that Cloud should kind of simply drop onto the bar like that rather than jump, but I've eventually made it and away we go. Cutting into a scene which is so stunning. It's one of the ones that they chose in the Share Factory for the remake's theme in there, and you've probably seen it in previous videos. It really sets out the devastation that's been wrought on Sector 7, and although the slum residents got out, what of all those people atop the plate?
I guess we'll build another bar.
Yeah. We will. You'll help too, won't you?
For a price.
A nice little in-joke from Cloud, and we move on towards the top and towards Shinra HQ by the use of the grappling guns, and we encounter a boss who we evade for a while, but ultimately we do have to fight. It's named in the remake as Valkyrie, and it's very reminiscent of one of the 2 bosses that we fight in the lifts escaping the HQ in the original game. I think maybe that's been moved to beef up the route to the Shinra building, although I did note that certainly that enemy is not called Valkyrie in the original. It's more of a sort of serial number of letters, etc.
Was getting tired of playing tag anyway. Come on. We win again. Not that there was ever any doubt. Now what? Shit!
The Valkyrie's explosion here gives us a little added piece of drama and a further chance for Cloud to be the spectacular hero.
There's such a thing as too much excitement.
Yeah. And there's still more to come.
Guess so.
Hope everybody's warmed up.
So we've now arrived at the base of Shinra HQ in both games, and we set off into the greatest challenge yet. I need to find a way to make climbing 59 flights of stairs interesting. But that's for next time. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and as usual, please like, share, subscribe and tinkle that notification bell. Getting World of Watsorb out there. Thanks for watching, and cheers for now. Bye bye.